And that's another thing that I'm interested in 40 by 80 with as well, because we see two teams that play on that in the championship last year. If it's really an issue where you don't want teams to have advantage,
Right,
the
right,
teams that are doing well
right.
are the 80 yard teams.
80 by 40, yeah. Yeah.
And especially with Bowling Green now in the mix, those are three teams that have a clear shot at being in the championship. And for you just to, somebody just to say, well, other team they would have an advantage. Other teams that for
Welcome in, everyone. My name is James Shannon. Thank you so much for checking out this edition of Extreme Talk. Thank you so much for checking out our YouTube channel, obviously, because that's how you're listening to this. When you get a chance, go look at some of our game highlights, the other editions, the episodes of Extreme Radio that air live every Sunday at 4 p.m. with Spencer Tom Sett and Isaiah Austin. And then on game days, and of course, we'll tell you what game we're going to be broadcasting the Sunday before on Extreme Radio, presented by Grace Point Healthcare. We also put out posts about it. You can keep up with our YouTube channel if you have the little bell on, if you have notifications turned on, and if you're subscribed to us. As soon as the guys go live for game day, you'll know exactly when, and you can hit the link for it. It'll take you straight to the video. You can watch the game live, whatever game we're at that given week. This week, we've got Sacred Heart of Jesus High School at Lighthouse Christian School. Really excited about this ball game. It's a big early season MTAC North showdown, and it could, we'll see what happens. It could be for obviously a win is on the line, but it could be for a playoff spot. You never ever know. So go check out all that stuff on our YouTube, social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Make sure you follow us. Just search 8-Man Extreme. We've got a lot of great stuff going on. One of the great things that we have started this week, of course, with week 2 being last week, is we've decided to let the fans vote for a player of the game, a player of the week, rather. And I've wanted to do this, but it's kind of been a whole, how do you really gauge this? And this is really something that myself and Isaiah and Spencer have talked about and tried to figure out the best way to do it. Of course, Twitter lets you do a poll. Instagram, you could do a poll on the story. And so we've decided to take advantage of that and put it out to you guys, the fans, the parents, the teammates. Give y'all a chance to vote for one of 3 kids, and I think we're just going to keep it at 3 for right now. One of 3 kids who was fantastic that week. Now I'll talk about the poll we did for this past week, and I want to address a couple things with it and how it works. So this past week we nominated, and again, we only nominate these players based off of their performances. And the 3 of us agree on these players. We nominated Gage Holman from Bowling Green Christian Academy. He had 4 touchdowns. We nominated Brooks Pugh from Christian Community School. He had 3 receiving touchdowns and a rushing touchdown. Gage Holman had 4 rushing touchdowns, I believe. And we nominated Matthew Bowden. I think that's how you say his name. It's easier to type it than it is to say it. From Lancaster Christian. And I believe he had 2 touchdowns, maybe 3, I think 2 though. And I know he had a good, solid night on defense, had a couple other good runs too. If you go watch our highlight film, had a couple big runs where he was able to avoid some tackles. So had a really good night for himself. But we put the voting out there. Those are the 3 guys we're going to nominate. These 3 guys, all their teams won, and they had the best night, in our opinion, for their team. So let's nominate them, and you guys vote on who the player of the week should be. Now, granted, we could have put the highlights out beforehand because not everyone can watch the game broadcast, get access to film. But we figure that, if you listen to Extreme Radio on Sundays, 4 p.m., again, live on YouTube, go to our YouTube channel, that you're at right now, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the bell for the notifications. But if you listen to Extreme Radio, we really break this down. We talk about it a lot. And we wanted to open up the poll on Sunday, and we just didn't get a chance to. But we're going to be opening up on Sundays from now on. But we opened it up, and of course, Brooks Pugh took off with the voting, as he should have. He had a fantastic night. Gage Holman was a steady right there with him. Matthew Bowden, no one really knew about him. I guess people just didn't watch the broadcast Thursday night. I don't know. But people didn't know about him. And so his votes were down a little bit. Well, someone at Lancaster Christian, and really Bowling Green and Christian Community should have done this. Someone at Lancaster picked up the ball about the poll and ran with it. And to the point, I mean, now Bowden himself was asking people to go vote for him. But someone at Lancaster took the ball and ran with it. Their official Instagram and Twitter got on board, and they spread the word, go vote for Matthew Bowden. So he took off with the voting. I mean, he won by enough votes that Brooks Pugh votes and Gage Holman votes combined would not equal his total amount of votes. So Matthew Bowden is our week 2 player of the game, player of the week. Fantastic night all around. Now, could we have put the stats with the players? Yeah. But here's my take on this. If you listen to Extreme Radio, and honestly, we put out the poll yesterday, and and we've tried to keep the show to an hour. So if you couldn't listen live between Sunday and this morning, if you didn't get a chance to listen to Extreme Radio, hear us talk about these guys and everything that they did in our game recaps, because Spencer and Isaiah do a fantastic job of recapping the games. If you didn't hear them, and I add a little bit at the end, we'll skip the sensitivity. But if you didn't hear them talk about these players and the games that they had, the games and the players and how well they did, then, there's only so much we can do. We put the information out there. Did we put all the stats out there? No, that's maybe something we need to change. But it's something we can't help. So, you, the fans, took off with the votes. Lancaster Christian really they bulldozed their way to a win for Matthew Bowden. So, congratulations to him. I wish we had a sponsor. We could give you a Subway gift card or something, but we don't. So it is what it is. I guess if it means anything, you can put it on your highlight film, or Instagram post or whatever the kids are doing nowadays. I'm just kidding. I'm a kid myself. Anyways, so congratulations. And here's the thing. People have said, well, you should have put the stats out there. Maybe, but at the same time, schools could have gotten behind their guys. If you're Christian Community or Bowling Green, if you got a guy nominated for Player of the Week, even if it doesn't mean jack diddly squat, go make a campaign. Tell everyone, hey, you already have an Instagram. Go follow 8-Man Extreme and all the great stuff they're trying to do. I'm not pumping me up or myself or the guys. I'm just saying, go follow 8-Man Extreme. Check out what they're doing. And while you're at it, go give Brooks Pugh a vote or reply. A lot of people did. Gage Holman, give him a vote. Go follow him on Twitter. Go give him a vote over there. Let's get to the polls. Let's get to voting. It's not going to hurt you. No one's going to see what you voted. So, if it means anything, and I don't know if it means anything, I'm not going to assign value to it. You're not winning a gift card. You're not getting some kind of prestigious award. You're just Player of the Week. Out of the 6 teams, let's say 6 teams, and each team has an average of, we'll say 15 for the sake of math, because I really don't feel like doing a whole bunch of math. 6 teams, 15 players a team, you got 90 kids. Yeah, 90 kids. So out of 90 kids, you got 3 really, really good players, and then one of the 90 is voted Player of the Week. So, just it's something fun. Go vote. It's not going to hurt you. If anything, it'll help encourage the kids, and maybe make it to where they go, you know what? I want to do that again. I want to get that again and again and again. I want to be the best, not to push others down. There was negativity on there. There were some negative comments. We're not doing that. You got a negative comment, you're gone. But it's something fun. So let's keep it that way. Let's have fun with it. I don't know. I have no idea who's going to show up and show out Friday night. Tomorrow night. I don't know. We'll see. You got South Haven hosting Webb. You got Riverside and Classical playing. You've got Bowling Green Christian and the Tennessee Heat, and then you got Sacred Heart and Lighthouse. So you got a couple MTAC North games, an MTAC South game, and then an inter-division game. Webb and South Haven, of course, playing a rematch of their playoff game last year, so I'm going to be interested in that. But I'm excited to see who shows up Friday night and who comes to play. The season's here. It's going to start taking shape over the next couple weeks. And you know how you can keep up with what games are happening every week? Go check out the helmet schedule. It's on Facebook and Twitter as a downloadable form. If you want a PDF, because sometimes PDFs are easier to pull up, and if you want to print it off, it looks better when you print it off. Hit us up. We'll send you a PDF of it. We're all about making it so that you have access to the 55, to see when the 55 8-man football games in Tennessee and Kentucky are happening this season. All about it, just for y'all. And special thanks to 5 Star Roofing, Taylor's HVAC and Mechanical, and 615 Sports. Big shout out to those 3. All right. I have got 2 guys here. One of them I'm pretty familiar with. The other one I don't know from Adam, but it's cool. I'm just kidding. I've got Jack James, Isaiah Austin, FCS alum, seniors last year. Of course, Isaiah, you can hear him on Extreme Radio. You can hear him on our game broadcasts. He does the game highlights. He writes the recaps. He's a workhorse. He really is. And he stays up till 2 in the morning, so that's cool. Anywho, I don't know why I keep saying anywho. I sound like not CCS Flanders, like Simpsons Flanders. Anyways, so the topic we're going to talk about, and of course, you played for 3 years. You played for forever. I'm just kidding. You were at Classical long enough to play with Shindell for Classical.
Well, I was with Classical for longer than he was.
Yeah, but you didn't play football.
No, I played football for 4 years. He's been at Classical for 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who, him?
Yeah, he's only been with us for 3 years.
You're on the roster.
I played middle school.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
He's like on the roster like in 2012.
I forgot about that.
Like way back in the day.
Yeah.
Like with Shindell, because Shindell went to Classical back in the day.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I asked him about that one day. He's like, yeah, it was a long time ago. I was like, so.
We were trash. We were both afraid to hit back then.
Anywho, okay, so the reason we're going to talk about the topic that we're going to, try saying that 10 times fast, is the league has not decided where the championship's going to be. Now, I know neither of y'all, well, y'all played for, like, the Division II, like what the bowl game was in 2014.
And
like both your freshman year.
And it was amazing because you got to act like you were the best team in the league when in reality you were the 5th best.
Yeah, yeah. That's why they had to get rid of that. Because you had, well, it's like, you had a team that won like 2 games, but somehow they were in the playoffs, in the Division II playoffs, and they're like, oh, we made the playoffs with 2 wins. And then, you know who it was? It was the Heat, because then y'all played them in the playoffs and trashed them, and then y'all beat Webb in 2015.
Yep, that was my freshman year.
Because y'all played 2 times in the postseason. Anyways, so the league has not decided where the championship game is going to be played this year, to my knowledge. That's what I'm hearing. So that being said, I know Webb has offered to do it again, and Webb was fine last year. I mean, I wasn't blown away. Everything was cool. You were there. You were on the sidelines. I know Spencer has mentioned before, like, doing it as Centennial. I guess he has connections there, so he's trying to get in Centennial. And I know one of the concerns is they want it to be an actual grass surface, not like turf. Did y'all ever play on turf?
I think we did for one game, maybe.
No, we didn't.
I feel like there was
Last
a game
year?
where we put
No, like at all.
Year.
No.
You never played on turf at all?
No.
Only time I was on turf was at Carson Newman.
Well,
they had turf.
And at the D1 place next to the mall.
Yeah. They've got turf, yeah.
So
those 2 options, and then I I really don't know what I don't know what else they're looking at. I mean, I guess they could go with Webb. And I'm going to sound like a super homer, like
But
big
I
time
agree with you.
homer. I think it should be at Christian Community. And I'll tell you why. Or second best option, and Jack disagrees. Second best option is the South Haven field that they play, the Martin Luther King Jr. Park here in Springfield. They played there I know they played their home games last year and then a couple games over the last couple years. And it's not because I'm from Robco, although I do I'm a Robco dude, more so than Wilco. Anyways, so I don't like Wilco at all, except y'all. And FCS and FCA people are cool. Anyway, so I say CCS, and I know a lot of people were going to give me grief because A, they're going to call me a homer, and B, they're going to bring up the fact it's an 80 by 40 field. It's a smaller field. If you look at it in reality, and I've always been a proponent of let's do everything to make the game equal. Like people's big knock about 8-man is it's less than 11. And I'm like, no, it's the same thing. It's just fewer guys. So we play on a 100-yard field because people bring up, well, don't you play on a smaller field? No, we play on a 100-yard field. So I am a massive proponent of equal. But 8-man is traditionally played on an 80 by 40 field. Like every Midwest team that plays it, 80 by 40. And Hendersonville was an 80 by 40. I think Bowling Green's an 80 by 40, isn't it? Yeah. I want to say it's South Haven when they play at that field. It's an 80 by 40. So, there's teams that play on 80 by 40s up here, of course, in the north. In the south, everyone is 100-yard and full field. But I don't think that it's a massive issue to do an 80 by 40 championship. I know everybody wants 100 because everybody's used to 100. It gives you more space, blah, blah, blah. I don't really care. I don't think it's about space. I think if two teams are going to make it to the championship because they either haven't lost a game or only lose one game, I think that they ought to have the ability to adapt to a smaller field and change their game plan a little bit. If they're really a good team, they'll be able to change. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I would agree with you. CCS is probably the place to do it. I just think from facilities-wise and overall presentation of the game, I think CCS blows out any other school in the MTAC as of right now. But I'm still trying to decide what my opinion on the whole 80 versus 100 thing is. But I feel like traditionally, since 8-man works on a 40 by 80 field traditionally, I don't think there's any problem with the league going in that direction for a year or seeing how it turns out. I think traditionally,
yeah, that's the thing. It can be a trial run and just see how it goes. I mean, I know they've never done it on 80 by 40 because they always had it at Curry Ingram. They've always had it at a member school. They had it at Curry Ingram and then Webb last year. Now, one year they had it at they had the Division I at Davidson Academy back in 2012. And this is really what they should have done last year. They were going to play at Curry Ingram because of CCS and Aaron, and then the game got lightninged out, the consolation game. So CCS was going to go to Dayton. So they were like, okay, we have to play on Monday night. And somebody knew somebody at Davidson, so they made it to where they could play the championship at Davidson Academy up here in Madison. But it was, and then the other thing was it was CCS and Aaron, so there was no point on a Monday night to drag both teams all the way down to Brentwood when Aaron's over here in Hendersonville and CCS in White House. You should go play in Madison. But anyways, you don't agree at all. Talking to Jack. You don't agree that they should do an 80 by 40. Do you not like the smaller field?
I hate the smaller field. You
Why?
get less yards. And y'all are playing on literally a baseball field. Y'all are playing on a baseball field.
Who's y'all? I'm not playing.
CCS.
I would play if I could. See, you're already labeling me as a homer.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's obvious.
What's wrong? What's wrong with you could not tell that's a baseball outfield. If you were to put a fence along the other side of that sideline, you could not tell that was a baseball field.
Yeah, except if you looked at the diamond about
Okay,
40 yards
Jack.
back.
No, I'm saying if you take the diamond away, you would not know that's a baseball outfield.
No.
then what's
Like,
the
it's
issue?
I just don't like the short field. We've always grown up on 100 yards.
Here's the other thing. Would you agree it's the best surface ever.
How about this? Name
not when it's
one
wet.
team. Name one team that has a better surface.
One
Of
team that has
Wet
a better
grass.
field surface.
I liked Webb's.
Webb's is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That grass just dies fast.
but I mean,
And when it's dead, it hurts.
y'all only have one championship game, and that's it there.
Yeah.
So I mean, who cares if the grass dies quick? Webb's not gonna make it to the playoffs.
It looks
so-
terrible. Like if you're NACA, you can pull it off because you use blue paint.
He just said Webb's not going to make the playoffs.
Oh, well.
So I mean, they're not gonna be.
I
playing
don't think they're going to make the playoffs either. So
No, I don't think
you're
so.
not
either.
alone.
Yeah.
But anyways, I just don't know. Like you said, the facilities are better, the location is better.
Location's right in the middle of
Webb
everything.
is in the middle of nowhere. I love Webb. Webb's in the middle of nowhere. You got to go 20 minutes to Murfreesboro if you want to eat something. I mean, we know. We went after the championship. We went, to Murfreesboro to eat, but we had to drive like 20, 30 minutes on back roads to get to somewhere.
Yeah.
White House, everything is right there. Everything.
I
Well,
mean,
you've never. How many times have you been to White House?
at CCS.
No, like
Twi-
White House. Like been to White House.
like maybe 3 times.
Jack,
Okay.
I'm going to drive you down the White House. We're going to go to the A&W. I'm going to get you a root beer float, and you're going to come back on the show with a changed mind.
The A&W is pretty good.
Only if you buy me a house, bro.
There's other stuff. There's other. Buy me a boat. There's other stuff in White House. I just
what
think
else is in
I think
there?
there's plenty. There's plenty
Walmart?
of restaurants. There's a Walmart.
Ooh.
Bell Buckle doesn't have a Walmart.
That's true, but they do have a nice corner cafe.
Now Shelbyville has a Walmart. I don't know. And then here in Springfield, like okay, so I know White House in Springfield, so I'm not trying to be a homer, but I know that they have stuff. It's like not in the middle of nowhere. There's like actual stuff
I
to go
agree.
to.
I
You don't
agree.
have to drive 30 minutes on back roads to get somewhere to eat.
Imagine if Riverside made the playoffs and
I'm cool with Fayetteville. Let's go do the championship down in Fayetteville. Except for travel. I
yeah,
mean,
and except
everyone's
for-
got to go south.
except for the hill at the end of the.
well,
and
you're
Zone.
the only guy who's done that.
I bet I'm
Yeah,
not.
you just-
I
you
bet
just-
I'm
I bet you
not.
are.
You went full speed down that thing.
Yeah.
I thought you had just disappeared. I thought we were playing 7-on-8. I
was
saw
almost
you. I saw
like-
you break to. I saw you break out, and then I looked back up, and you're gone.
I was
Yeah.
like, Coach Dubs is a magician. He's 1 minute, and the next he's gone.
Yeah, that's how it would happen.
Riverside's field isn't that bad, though.
No, but that hill is very
yeah, that
concerning.
hill's awful.
Okay, so let's build the wall.
Hey, I'm down.
Let's put something at the end. Well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, let's build a brick wall. There, Attaboy James. That's quickly.
No, maybe just like a little fence or something. Like not. I mean, like like
Yeah, but
maybe
that's
maybe
like
a
the
2
least
foot.
of their worries. Like, how many times are you actually going to have someone like go out for a pass and run out the back of the end zone like Jack?
I don't think it's that big.
Jack
of a
is the
deal, but-
epitome of he doesn't stop if the ball's overthrown. He's like, it's down the ditch. I'm going to go get it.
It was thrown
I have
accurate.
to. I have to get this 60-yard pass in the stat
Wow,
book.
throwing shade at Cole. We love you, Cole. Throwing shade at Cole.
No.
Yeah.
He's my boy.
Anywho, no. And then in like Riverside, it's got some decent stuff. You got stand. That's the only downside with CCS is there's not enough like places for people to sit.
Yeah.
That's their only downside. And the fact that everyone's on one side. Well,
Mhm.
Riverside's like that. And Webb.
Well,
Okay, well everybody else is like that.
Riverside's got a hill though that you can sit on.
All right, we're
True.
done with the hill, Jack. We're moving on.
No,
Not that
he's
hill,
talking
the
about the
different
other
hill.
hill.
Yeah.
He's talking about the other hill
Oh,
that
I
the
got
press
you.
box is
Okay.
on.
Yeah.
They got a better press box. Well, I mean,
Eh.
It's not-
No, I
it's
See-
wouldn't.
bigger.
CCS.
But does it have fans in it?
That's a good question. I don't know if they've added fans.
when you play at CCS, they have a huge home field advantage. Their sound system is pretty good too.
They don't lose there. I can think of like
Y'all don't lose.
South Haven beat y'all. You keep going doing the y'all, man.
Look,
South Haven beat them in 2015. They shut them out. Freedom beat them in 2016. Of course, they didn't lose last year at home. I mean, they lose maybe once a year,
Mhm.
maybe.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
They-
y'all are always stacked too.
they've got a good home team. Yeah, they just
Have like
reload.
30 players.
They reload. Well, they got a good JV system too.
Yeah.
But
that's-
anyways, back to the topic. So you don't like having an 80-yard field.
Well, I mean, growing
That's
up.
because you're a receiver, though.
Yeah, I like stats.
We don't care.
Yeah, y'all are big boys. Y'all just get the job done down
As
low.
long as there's like a good 5 yards.
We fight every play so that you can get those stats.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you.
Because
Why do you think
we weren't
James?
there.
Thank both.
Because if we weren't there,
Yeah.
Cole would be on his butt more so than he already was.
Yeah, that's
And then he wouldn't be able to throw to you.
yeah. That
So,
would suck.
Anyhow, like I said, I want the 80-yard field, 80 by 40. At least try it for a year.
I think it would be interesting to try out.
Here's the other thing. If you go play at Centennial or South Haven Field, Webb, you don't have to do this. But if you go play at any other field, you're going to have to pay a rent. You're going to have to pay rent for it. You have to rent it out for a game or two. You go play CCS, you don't have to rent the field. You don't have to put any money out on it as the league or anything. And all the money can just go to the league and the school instead of going to the league, the school, and wherever the game's at.
Yeah, that's true. And I like Centennial's Field a lot too. I mean, if that door opened, that would be awesome.
That would be
Yeah.
cool. It would be first off, you'd play it at where the Titans had their practice, so it'd give you a lot of exposure.
Yeah,
I mean, it's kind of centralized.
it's a
didn't
really
think
nice field though.
I loved games at Curry Ingram. I was cool with Curry Ingram, other than they didn't have a press box. They just had the scaffolding. But
Yeah, that was fun.
Curry Ingram was cool. I mean, I kind of hate that they had to leave. Had to stop doing it there.
Yeah, I think either Christian Community or I think Christian Community, Webb, although it does have its downsides, and a public school would be, all three are good options. But honestly, I think the right direction right now is CCS for this coming year.
And I still like Riverside.
I don't think Riverside's has a chance.
You
Just
don't
because they're
think they
so
have a chance?
far. They're so far from every. They're literally the furthest from.
Webb
like
is
every
like
team.
30 minutes from Murfreesboro.
Well, that's one team. That's one team though.
What?
Like Riverside is so far from everybody.
No, they're not. It's like an
Yes.
hour and a half from Franklin.
I mean, and then think about the North teams or Bowling Green. They'd have to take
They
like a
obviously
day
don't
drive.
care about that. They obviously don't care about that because they had two teams 20 minutes apart and they made them drive down to Bell Buckle last year, which still doesn't make sense. Hey, you're 20 minutes away, but you're going to drive all the way down to Bell Buckle to play. I didn't like that at all.
No, and that's one reason I think that it should be picked the week before.
Why wouldn't you just have it set in stone?
Because you get a situation like what happened with Webb last year, where Webb hosted the championship that they barely didn't make it to. I won't say barely. I'm saying they had
Well,
an
they
opportunity
got
to.
smacked by
Yeah.
South Haven.
But they're hosting a championship for two teams that are on the same highway.
Like literally, South Haven's right here. CCS and White House is 20 minutes away.
And
And
they had to
drive
fly
all
down
the
to
way
Bell
to
Buckle. But, I mean, I guess it's
Well, that's just random though. That depends on what teams are good that year.
I mean, I get that.
So I mean,
get that, but I do think I think you got to pick it closer to time.
and that's another thing that I'm interested in 40 by 80 with as well, because we see two teams that play on that in the championship last year. If it's really an issue where you don't want teams to have advantage,
Right,
the teams
right.
that are doing well
Right.
are the 80-yard teams.
80 by 40, yeah.
And especially with Bowling Green now in the mix, those are three teams that have a clear shot at being in the championship. And for you somebody just to say, well, other team they would have an advantage, other teams would have. For them playing on a 100-yard field, it could be a disadvantage. And those are three top teams.
And then that concession stand.
Oh, don't even get me started. I wasn't even thinking about that in my point. Now I'm all in for CCS.
They got to figure out a way to get more seating, though. Like I said, you got to get more seating, because you're gonna have a Curry Ingram problem where the stands are full, and then you got like 3 row deep of people along the field. And the other problem with CCS too is you can't just go stand on the other sideline. Like if you're gonna stand on the other side, you got to stand on the other side of the baseball field, unless you like put fencing up. Like if you put fencing up to separate the diamond from the outfield, and then you could stand on the fence.
Mm-hmm.
That would work, I guess. They used to put they had bleachers on the other side.
What happened?
They decided to put all the bleachers on one side, and then put the away team on the side with all the bleachers, so that it was like loud. The PA system and the fans would mess
okay.
with the away team, and then CCS is just on the far side, so nobody can mess with them.
that's what Bowling Green did. You have the
Yeah.
away team right next to that loudspeaker where you can't hear anything. As soon as that dude talks, you can't hear anything.
Oh my, he is a loud guy.
He's so
We
loud.
love him, but he's loud.
Yes. Yes, and he loves Bowling Green, Kentucky.
He does. If you listen to the highlights video, you can get a little sneak peek.
Yeah, yeah. He's cool. Swanee's PA person is interesting. Do you remember hearing her? They have the woman that does it.
Well, what is she like?
Well, you'll find out. We go to Swanee. We go to Swanee later on.
What happened to the?
You were gonna. Well, yeah, we go to Swanee in October.
Yeah.
So.
What happened to the Swanee University Championship game? What happened to that? I just didn't.
See, that's
fell
cool
through.
too. But that's a drive.
But there is stuff
I mean,
in
so is
Swanee.
Riverside.
There's stuff.
There is stuff in
Swanee
Swanee
is a
and
great
Monteagle
city.
stuff.
I love
Yeah.
Monteagle.
I got a buddy who lives down there. Yeah. I mean, there's stuff down there too. There's just nothing in Bell Buckle or War Trace. Now there's stuff in Shelbyville, but you got to drive to get to Shelbyville. Drive 15, 20 minutes.
I mean,
I mean,
in Bell Buckle's defense, they do have a diner that's open till 5, and they have ice cream, great milkshakes, and goo-goos or moon pies.
Moon
And
pies.
all that.
Moon pies and RC
I mean,
Cola.
if you wanna load up on chocolate, I would actually recommend, like right before a football game, load up on chocolate. I
True.
recommend it.
True. Well, the other thing about Webb is they have actual locker rooms.
Yeah, that's true. They're nice.
That's a point for them. CCS doesn't have. That'd be the thing CCS needs to add is locker rooms. That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah. Riverside has locker rooms, kinda.
gym room.
Well,
a gym room.
Well, at least
The
they have
workout
like
room.
they have a room other than a women's bathroom for the away team to change in.
we changed in the women's softball place for Webb.
yeah, that was a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Really? Because
Mhm.
I've been down there before and we were dressed in the like they had an actual away locker room.
No. Well, it said women's softball, so
No,
or soccer or something.
maybe soccer. But at least it's a locker room and not a women's bathroom.
Yeah. Like CCS.
Well, the bathroom was
CCS,
attached.
Yeah, true. That's true. But yeah, I think they ought to try CCS
I agree.
at least 1 year.
We'll get Jack
No.
on board.
No.
So where would you go?
Webb.
Okay, if you couldn't go Centennial. Okay, so you like Webb.
Yeah, I like Webb's Field, and they've got enough stands for enough people.
No, they don't.
Yes, they
They
do.
barely have
No,
stands.
Yes, they
Jack.
do.
Jack, they could barely. When we played against them, they could barely. We were out of the bleachers.
Wasn't that their homecoming?
No.
That wasn't?
Championship last year, they had a bunch of people just standing though, like on the side.
And then bring your own chair.
That's true.
I mean, and they've got enough seating for
Sit
places to bring their
under.
own chair.
Well, there's a fence. You can't see. I saw these like
then you stand.
senior citizens at like right next to the goalpost, just sitting there watching because they couldn't see.
There
We
needs to
say
be-
we say CCS doesn't have locker rooms, but at least they have bathrooms. Because Webb's bathroom is a porta john,
Yeah, that's true.
and their
Oh, that
their
was
concessions is a trailer. That's like a pull behind trailer.
Decent concessions though.
Not CCS level.
No, definitely not. I mean, James, I don't know about you, but after this, I'm getting a little hungry. Let's see if we can get the
I am
recipes to
getting
some of the
hungry.
stuff
I'm
down
gonna
there.
go home and eat.
You smell that food in the middle of a game, you get hungry.
Well, we need to go down to CCS and get into some of their ingredients and try to cook up some of those burgers. That's what I'm saying.
Or that Philly cheesesteak.
I didn't try it yet.
I was worried y'all didn't feed Wayne the other night. I was listening to the broadcast, and Spencer's like, "Yeah, Wayne wants some of this Philly cheesesteak," and I was like,
It's like,
"Did
Wayne,
y'all
you want
not-"
some? You want a bite?
I started getting
Sit.
worried. I was like, "Y'all didn't feed them? Y'all didn't feed him?" And then you and Spencer were like, "Yeah, we fed him." I was like,
Yeah, of
"Okay."
course.
like,
I was like, okay,
talking about
cool.
him like he's a dog. yeah, we
Wayne
fed the
sit.
good boy.
He gave
Wayne,
him a piece of
How
Philly
did you do on the
cheesesteak.
computer? Wayne's our new tech guy. Runs
Yeah.
the computer. Like everybody has double jobs because Isaiah does the camera and color, Spencer does the soundboard and play by play, and then Wayne does the computer.
He's pretty good at recording stuff.
Me?
No, Wayne.
Wayne, yeah, he's good.
Yeah, he does a good job. He's really caught on.
So, anyways, but it's an interesting topic for sure. You guys. I swear. Anywho, all right. So, Extreme Talk. You've listened for 4 weeks. Is there anything I've talked about? I know. Do you have a minute? Do you have a minute?
No, I'm good. Yeah.
Is there anything?
Yeah,
is there anything I've talked about that you have an opinion that you've wanted to share?
You're putting me on the spot here.
I've talked about some stuff. What about touchdown celebration? Well, we talked about y'all
touchdown
talked about that on the
celebrations.
show.
You should be able to do whatever you want as long as it fits into a realistic time frame. Jack could go into the end zone and start shimmying and dancing, and the rest wouldn't even look at him. He could run into the end zone, deck a kid, then take the ball and run to our sidelines and get hype with everybody with the game ball in his hands before the 2-point conversion.
Junior year, baby.
But at our homecoming game, when he points up to God,
and I get a penalty for it.
we get flagged for
That happened
unsportsmanlike
a couple
conduct.
times last year.
There needs to be a
Lighthouse-
barometer.
Lighthouse
Yeah.
had a dude that pointed up, and it was like his second personal foul, so he got ejected for it.
Jeez,
I didn't
they have
understand
to
that.
set a barometer. It can't be like different refs have different opinions on celebrations. It needs to be set
That's
in
true.
stone and given to the coaches so that they can tell their players.
That was homecoming too. I mean, I'm just trying to hype up the crowd.
Was
He was-
Dubs cool with you doing that though?
I mean, he was
Or
cool.
no, Dubs wasn't your coach that year.
Yeah, he
was.
was.
Was he?
That was
good?
last year. We were talking about last year.
I thought you said your senior.
It was
oh,
against
yeah, yeah,
That was
CCS.
senior year.
No, what about junior year when you
Truck that kid.
Yeah.
That was hype. That
Yeah,
I didn't get
that
a
was
pen-
against
Was
Grace.
that was my
that
first
was against,
touch.
that was
Cool with that,
against
though?
yeah, that
Oh,
was against
yeah.
Grace Baptist.
Yeah, that team was oof.
Yeah,
Anyway,
but Ethan was pretty good.
Ethan
Remember-
Garrison.
Yeah.
Oh, he
was at
played
the
for
All-Star game last year. Yeah.
Are we thinking? Is it Grace Baptist? For
Yeah.
sure?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
They were
Ethan.
Grace Baptist in 2016 and then Madisonville last year.
Gotcha.
Ethan went to the All-Star game both times.
Yeah. Okay.
He was 87. He was
Yeah.
like the quiet kid.
I just remembered scoring touchdowns against them. They weren't that good that year.
He was their DN. I was wondering if you remember from the All-Star game.
Oh, I remember him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate to.
He was like the perfect example of a really good player on a team
That was bad.
that was bad.
Like,
Yeah,
what's his face?
this-
Trent.
Yeah.
Trent.
Yeah.
Trent.
They
Love
had
you, Trent.
They had this little
Yes.
defensive end lined up, and I'm blocking him on a sweep, and the ball's about 20 yards down the field. He goes, "Okay, you can stop blocking me now." I'm not kidding you. I'm not making that up.
And now he's playing college ball too.
No, I'm not talking about Ethan.
Oh, who are you
Ethan
talking
would not.
No, he's talking about Trent.
No, I'm not talking about Trent either. I'm
Who
talking
you-
about a Grace Baptist little defensive end. He tries to come around the corner. I just stand him up, and we just kind of stand there. And he goes, "All right, you can stop blocking me now."
I was at the field. I was at the field today, or I was at the school that has the field where Trent suplexed Caden.
Pleasant View.
Yeah, Cheatham County. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I was at that field today.
Yeah, that was a big controversy back in the day before we found out that Trent was just a big old teddy bear.
He really is. He's chill.
My dad knew he's dead.
Really?
He's a fireman, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Small
both
world.
firemen dead.
Small world.
Yep.
That's crazy.
We got that dub that year.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think everybody did.
Yeah, we got
Literally. I remember they came out. They had just had the spaghetti dinner. And first play of the game, Jack goes in at quarterback. He's on spaghetti, spaghetti.
Because
Who
That
did?
was-
Who did?
I
Pleasant View?
did. No,
No,
yeah, they
yeah,
just
Pleasant
ate.
View had like this luncheon
Mhm.
or dinner in.
Like
I don't know what
before
you.
the
Yeah,
game?
yeah. They had spaghetti, and they're all coming out, wiping their faces and their pads.
Hey, buddy, you got spaghetti sauce right here. Hey, let me
And
get that.
Jack picked some fun at it on the first drive at quarterback. He's
Oh,
going,
yeah.
spaghetti,
Is that
spaghetti."
like Oakland? Like when they're on the goal line and they decide to run the ball instead of pass it, they say Seattle.
Oh,
It's like the best thing ever. What's the best audible you've ever heard? Like one that made you just laugh. Like you literally laughed when you heard it.
I'd say probably the spaghetti one was the best. It was an
that was
awful
against
game.
the
and
cheaters. Yeah,
You care to elaborate who the cheaters are?
they know who they are.
Okay. All right.
literally,
Yeah.
the cheaters.
Literally?
Yeah.
I'm sure you know now.
23-year-old.
Okay.
No, that was not the case, Jack.
That's
not
what I
the case. You're
heard.
spreading fake news.
Fake news. Look at
Nah.
you go CNN.
No, I ain't CNN. Well, not that Fox News.
Fox News, yeah. For real. Good talk. I know you wanted to come over here for a while, so.
Yeah.
That's what Isaiah said. So
Yeah.
Oh,
I shouldn't
said you've
have
been wanting
believed
to get
him.
on-
I shouldn't have
No,
believed him.
I
though.
said you've been wanting to get on the show.
Yeah, I want to talk.
This one or the other one?
No, I didn't care.
Oh, okay.
This is still.
All right. Thanks.
Hey everyone, I'm excited to have my guest this week join me. He is Coach Seth Bass. He is currently in Missouri, North Shelby, Missouri, coaching at high school football up there. But he is also the former head coach of McClain Christian Academy, which not a whole lot of folks might know about, unless you're from the Wilson County area or you've been playing ball or around 8-man football for a while. So, Coach, thank you for joining us this week.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Glad to be here.
So for those folks that don't know you or haven't kept up with you, kind of give everybody an idea of how you got into coaching and then how you got into coaching there at McClain.
Okay. I got into coaching just because it was an avenue to pursue my love of football and to try and make an impact on young people. And I actually got my first coaching job up in Missouri, but being from Tennessee, I moved back there after a few years and worked at Cumberland University for a year, and then accepted the athletic director and head football job there at McClain Christian after they had just started football the year before and played, I think, one middle school season beforehand.
So with you coming in and you guys starting up they had, like you said, they'd started, played a middle school game, but then you guys got started. What was one of the biggest things you were trying to tell kids to help get that program started, get them to come out and play football? Because sometimes I think when you start a program, after the initial excitement of, hey, we're going to have football, then it sets in that it's a lot more work than people might think it is. So what was one of the biggest messages you were trying to tell kids, maybe to get them to either to stay or to come out for that team the first couple of years?
I think there was a couple of different things. At the time that I was hired, a pretty some problems of their own. They were having a pretty ugly separation from their previous headmaster the spring before I was hired, and there were a lot of questions about what was still going to happen with the school and the athletic program in general. So, with me getting hired, that was supposed to be a pretty big message to a lot of the male students that we're still going to be here. We're still going to have a football program, and our athletic program is still going to be pretty strong. So the first thing that I had to kind of sell was the school to the kids that were there to prevent them from trying to transfer to Friendship or to another public school, and just make sure that they were around and would believe in what we were going to be doing. And once that got established, once we got a few kids kind of on board, then we were able to snowball that a little bit and get our roster built back up. We were pretty small that first year, and with them only playing a middle school season and us transferring into varsity play because they were all in high school now, that was a kind of a tough learning curve for them. So they had to prepare and learn how to work. We were very, very fortunate that Woody Hunt, the baseball coach at Cumberland University, he was very generous in letting us use his weight room on a regular basis. So they were learning how to do that, learning how to put the time in to work on health and everything like that. And then from there, then I could finally actually sell them a little bit on football, on trying to be a team and trying to learn the game. And of course, I was trying to learn 8-man football myself at that time because I'd never heard of it before I'd taken the job there. So I had a great group of kids, and they all worked very well together. And most of them had grown up with each other, so they had a pretty good camaraderie with themselves anyway. So it was a good experience, and that was something that it kind of fed off of itself after a while. But those first few stages of trying to get them out and trying to make sure that the football program survived that turmoil around the school was an adventure for a little bit.
Now, back in the day when you guys had your program around, when McClain had their program around, there were several tough teams. Of course, Christian Community, Aaron Academy, Franklin Classical was there. But who were some of the teams that you could kind of get your players excited for, maybe a little bit more because you knew you would have a little bit closer of a game, or maybe you would have a little more competition instead of them just coming out and feeling like, well, this week we're gonna get smacked.
Well, that first year, we played a brutal schedule. We played Christian Community for homecoming, and they, throttled us. And we played Aaron Academy, I think, for their homecoming too. And that was even worse because my quarterback was out that game with a broken hand, and we just were completely overmatched by both of those teams. But actually, the first year, we got most excited for playing Tennessee School for the Deaf and for playing Franklin Christian Academy. We played it was technically a JV game with them because they were kind of in the same boat with us with being a bunch of 8th and 9th graders. So the TSD games, the first time we played them fairly tough. They were very good that year. They won the national, absolutely loaded, but I think they beat us 36-8 the first time, which was, fairly close. I was disappointed with how we played. We didn't play our best game, and we were excited to play them the second time that year. We knew they were good, and we were really more excited about playing on their campus. As a former small college coach. It was kind of a small college type of atmosphere with them being a boarding school, and it was a cool atmosphere that the kids really enjoyed. And we all got to take a pretty long road trip over to Knoxville to take that. And that's still, even though we got throttled because we were when we played that, we were banged up, and with them being such a good team, they put it to us. But we were excited for that experience. Then Franklin Christian, we played them in the JV game the following week, and with us being the same age, that was when we finally broke through and got our first win of the season. And you could sense the relief amongst the kids, and feel that joy that they had felt the year before, because they'd had a pretty good middle school season the year before. And it was good to get that experience and be around kids and compete against guys that were our age. So, but that first year with us playing the brutal schedule we did with Aaron Academy and Christian Community and South Haven Christian, and I forget who else we played that first year, but thus playing that schedule that we did, I mean, it prepared us very, very well for that second season.
You mentioned going up to Tennessee School for the Deaf. This year, I think we're actually broadcasting 2 or 3 of their games. They played the Tennessee Heat right there in Mount Juliet to close the season out. Like you mentioned, it's just a special place. It's a unique place that I really don't think there's anywhere else here in Middle Tennessee that could copy that atmosphere and just the setup that they have.
I agree. They've got a great facility, and that was when Coach Henley was still there, and Coach Henley did such a great job with his kids, and he was a great role model for them. And I've seen some film on them the last couple of years, because we actually played Missouri School for the Deaf 2 years ago after they'd already played TSD earlier in the year, and got to see some film, and it broke my heart that their numbers are down as low as they are now, because when we played them, they were around 30 kids, and they were just loaded with talent. And I remember watching that film a couple of years ago, and I think they had maybe 8 or 9 kids dressed. So, but like you said, the atmosphere there, being right by the river and down the hill from the campus, and just going around the campus in the fall, it's a great place.
Hey, how big of a rivalry did you guys have with the Tennessee Heat, being right there in Wilson County with you guys?
It's something that all of our other sports, we had a pretty big rivalry. And football, we never really got to play. We played each other in the Jamboree to kick off the 2012 season, and got after each other a little bit. And we discussed playing a bowl game with them at the end of the year, because that was the year we weren't able to go to the MTAC playoffs, unfortunately. And we talked about just having a Wilson County Bowl just to play each other. But our kids and their kids both, I think, at the end of the season, at least in our last games, Steve and I both agreed that they both seemed like they were ready to just transition to basketball and be done with it. We just decided to kind of pull the plug on that. And our rivalry has always been centered more on basketball with them than it was on the football field, unfortunately, since we had them on the schedule the following year, but we didn't have a team in 2013. So we were never able to face off against them, unfortunately.
Yeah, you guys having your few-year run, and then the team shutting down. How many guys did you have committed for that 2013 season?
When we had our meeting in the spring, I think we had 6 at the most, and that was kind of a shaky 6. That was the year that the TWSAA and the state of Tennessee had passed the rule or law or whatever it was that allowed the homeschoolers to play with their local public schools. So we lost some of our homeschool athletes that we had playing with us. We had another kid that decided he was going to focus on basketball, and we had a couple other kids that transferred back to Lebanon High School. So our numbers just weren't great. And we had such a small enrollment at the school at the time that there just wasn't anyone else to draw from. We had a really big group of seventh grade boys that year. But they just weren't old enough to get out there with a football program. So we were fortunate enough to at least set up the co-op with Mount Juliet Christian Academy, and we had a couple of our kids and myself that went over and joined that for a year, and they were able to continue their playing career. But it was just an unfortunate thing that, when you've only got about 20 kids or so in the high school and homeschool athletes, it wasn't a sustainable thing, unfortunately.
You mentioned pretty cool place to play, Tennessee School for the Deaf, and of course you guys had a pretty good home field, a couple home fields you used. But outside of that, maybe those couple places. What's the best place that you enjoyed going to play, and then on the flip side, what was the worst place that you ever went and played at?
Um, when we went to St. Andrews Sewanee, that was a great atmosphere too. We went down there in mid-September, I think, and the leaves were starting to change. We were up on the mountain for a day game on a Saturday, and my former college minister, he was speaking at a church, or he is at a church pretty close to there in Winchester. So we went down a little early and we had a meal with him, and then went over to Sewanee for the game, and that was a very memorable moment for us. It was a great atmosphere for football, and as far as the worst, I don't really know if there was a worst. We went to Hendersonville Christian for a game. We went to Aaron Academy for a game, and we went to Franklin Christian. And with those all being community fields, it was all kind of the same type of atmosphere. It didn't have that campus feeling that you got at Tennessee School for the Deaf, or that you got from St. Andrews Sewanee or anything like that. So I don't necessarily want to say that those were the worst, but those were the places that I guess had the least atmosphere of road games that we experienced.
You, of course, have now transferred to or transitioned to Missouri, and you're coaching 8-man football up there. Talk a little bit about that. What are some of the differences that you see, maybe between 8-man football here in Tennessee, and then maybe how it's played or coached in Missouri?
Well, there's a few differences. Schematically, I was surprised coming up here for my time in Tennessee. At the time, at least, everybody was, for the most part, staying two backs, I formation type of stuff. And we were a little bit out of the box and kind of ran an 8-man version of the wing tee when I was down there. And, I've been watching 8-man film of Tennessee for some of your broadcasts, and some of the other things that I've gotten my hands on from some friends down there, that, the schemes down there have progressed a little bit more. It looks like there's a little bit more variety down there. And when I came up here, I was expecting a little bit more of that. And there is, to a point, but there, in our state at least, it's still pretty reliant on the I formation and that type of thing. I would say the biggest difference that I've seen is there's a much greater disparity between what you'd call the haves and the have-nots. With there being a decent split between enrollments with some of the schools that are the traditional powerhouses up here, such as the Stanberries and the North Andrews and the Worth counties. The teams that have been to the finals, pretty regularly, they've got a lot bigger athletes. They've got a lot bigger numbers usually for them. And then there's kind of a muddled middle there where really most of the rest of us fall. There's one or two teams every year that struggle with numbers, but for the most part, it's one of those things where you're always kind of trying to scramble to be 10 or so, but it's very difficult to break into the elite of the top one or two or three, just because they've got so many more kids to traditionally pull from. But things are pretty unpredictable up here as well. Our state runner-up last year, Sacred Heart, over in Sedalia, Missouri, we were supposed to play them this year, and they actually ended up not having enough kids for a team. So they went from state runner-up to not having a team just in 6 months, just because they had a senior class of 13. They graduated 13 out of 19 athletes. With them not having a team, I know that's something that we encountered and obviously experienced firsthand with us not having a team there at McClain. So, we're talking with some of the other states around. I've been out to Nebraska and Kansas a little bit for either playing games or to 8-man clinics and that type of thing. I know Nebraska's running a ton of option. Kansas is pretty diversified in what they're doing offensively. Illinois, the last 2 years, has started to stir up some 8-man as well, and I think it's going to explode over there because there's so many rural schools that need to make that move over there, and they're kind of finding their identity a little bit, much like the MTAC was when I was down there. It was still kind of in the early stages, so it'll be interesting to see if Illinois kind of follows the Tennessee type of pattern with growth or not.
Something we're trying to, I don't want to say combat down here, but people struggle to see 8-man at times the same as 11. Obviously, other than the numbers, it's the same game. What is the vibe up there in Missouri with schools that play 8-man? Obviously, you just said that you just mentioned that there's a lot of public schools that play it, whereas there's really none down here in Tennessee. Now, there's some that maybe should transition, and maybe TSSAA should create that 8-man division. But what's kind of the vibe around 8-man in Missouri from what you picked up?
Well, it's interesting. We've got kind of a firsthand perspective of that because we're very unique with our location. If you draw a circle around us from where we are in Northeast Missouri, you have to go 2 hours in any direction to find another eight-man team. Most of Missouri's eight-man teams are confined to the northwest corner of the state. So when we made the move a couple of years ago, it was obviously met with curiosity and questions. And, there's some 11-man teams around here that I think desperately need to make the move. And there's some others that seriously need to consider it, in my opinion. So, excuse me, we see those questions quite a bit. And you do kind of still see the stigma that it's not real football, it's arena football, or it's flag football or something like that. And like you said, it is still at the end of the day, you got to block, you got to tackle. It's still the exact same game. And we've tried to promote that, and we've been fortunate to have a few Saturday games that have allowed some of the local schools to come out and watch us. And I've tried to be very proactive and talk with as many coaches as I can on the merits of it. And I've really tried to stay in touch with the Illinois coaches as they're trying to get it to grow over there. I think it's the biggest thing is people just don't like change around here, and I think that's the biggest problem on what holds it up for growth. Missouri, even though it's a state-sanctioned sport, and even though we have a state championship game through MSHA, we only have 24 teams in the state that do it. It's kind of a little bit of the stigma that keeps people from doing it. Plus, it's one of those things with us all being small rural schools for the most part that pretty much as it grows, it almost dies a little bit too, because we've had some teams that have gotten small enough they've actually had to co-op with other eight-man teams. So it's one of those, you add one, you lose one, unfortunately, the last few years. So I optimistically think it will grow, and I do think in Tennessee that TWSAA is missing out on a great opportunity to help some of the smaller public schools by not sponsoring it. I really would like to see them reach out to MTAC and try to get some sort of agreement with them to either host state championships or allow some of their public schools to join it and to get involved with that and play eight-man, because I know there's a lot of rural Class 1A teams down there that are struggling with numbers. That eight-man could really save the football program and really save the community a little bit down. So
and you have TWSAA creating. Of course, you have the Division II, which is all your private schools. But then even there, you have three divisions, and then 1A is schools. I want to say enrollment up to either 200 or 500, something like. Or I think it's 500. But even then, if you have a school with an enrollment of 450, it's different than a school with 200. It's just it's a completely different beast. So it's something that we've tried to champion and just bring more awareness to, because it's something that, like you said, at the end of the day, you're still going to block and tackle.
Yeah.
Who's the best kid, and you can include Tennessee in this if you want to. Who's the best kid that you've ever coached against, and then who's the best kid that you've ever coached? Maybe that's either that's gone the farthest or was just the best at the time you were with him.
Well, prior to this past year, the Chrisman kid that was at Christian Community, he was a stud. I mean, he was the best one that I went against when I was in Tennessee. Of course, on my team in Tennessee, we had Weston Roundtree, who was a young guy at the time, but he went to Wilson Central for a couple of years and ended up, he's at Wofford College right now in South Carolina. And his little brother, I think, is at Centre College in Kentucky. So they were both outstanding athletes. And we had a couple other guys that probably could have had an opportunity if they wanted to. This past year, we played Worth County week 2, and they were just absolutely loaded. And probably not only their 8 starters, but probably their top 4 or 5 subs. All of them were just phenomenal. I've never seen a collection of talent like that. They were all big, 6 foot, 6'3", 220 to 260, and they could all just run. It was a collection of athletes unlike what I've have seen. Their best player was their middle linebacker and running back. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but Very, very good player. Did get an opportunity to go play college. I don't remember which, but just an outstanding type of athlete. And I've been blessed here to have some pretty good athletes. My first year, we had a couple that had the opportunity to play college. Two of them did. One of them went to Truman State here pretty locally, even though he's transferring to another school this year. And my tight end, he's over at Quincy University. And excuse me, they're both Division II level schools. And then I've got a couple of other seniors this year. I think that are going to have a good opportunity to play. Mason Olmeyer, he broke 1,000 yards for us rushing last year, and he was the first North Shelby back to do that since 2008. And we've got a senior kid that's coming out for the first time since fifth grade, Kirby Latimer, 6'2", 220 kid that's a very promising athlete as well. And even though he hasn't played football in quite a while, he's come a long way just this summer in his progression. I think both of those kids are going to have a great opportunity to play at the next level as well after this season. So we'll see. But those the Chrisman kid from CCS that first year, Aaron Academy's running back the second year I was down there in 2012. TSD, like I said, they were loaded those 2 years that we played them. They had a lot of great athletes, and they were just overall a great team. So, I've come across a lot of good ones, and I think that's one of those, kind of going back to the stigma thing about 8-man, that a lot of parents always make the assumption that you can't get the opportunity to play college football at the 8-man level. But I've had already 4 or 5 that have done it just in my career with 8-man, and that's only 5 years of being an 8-man head coach, and played against several other collegiate talents. I think about 5 or 6 of the kids that we played against last year are playing collegiately. Most of them at Northwest Missouri State, who's pretty stout college football program. So it just goes to show there's talent everywhere, and they will find you. And I think a lot of people just use that as a crutch, unfortunately.
I was literally about to ask you that, how much does it help the stigma of 8-man, no matter what state it's in, to, a couple years ago you had Iowa, and 3 of their 4 defensive linemen came from 8-man teams. This past year you had a kid named Leighton Vander Esch, got drafted by the Cowboys, number 19. He played 8-man in Idaho and then walked on at Boise State and ended up getting drafted. So I was literally about to ask you, when you see stories like that, how much does it help that stigma of, well, you can't go play college if you play an 8-man, and it's less football.
I think it helps quite a bit. I mean, it's anytime first of all, it's promotion for the 8-man game, and just gets us in the news and brings awareness to. I mean, some people don't even realize 8-man football exists, and I'd say that there's still a lot of people that don't realize 8-man. But anytime you can very easily combat complaints that it's not real football, or that you can't get scholarships, or you can't have the opportunity to play pro, anytime you can combat one of those stigmas with very obvious factual evidence, then it's a very good thing. And it's something that I'm really trying to push here. And with us being a really rural community, we've got a lot of guys that that's not necessarily something that they had ever thought of before, but we've already had a couple. I expect, just like I said, to have 2 more this year. We've got a very talented junior class that I think we'll have a handful signing out of there. And I think that's our ticket, at least locally, trying to convince some of these 11-man teams that need to join us. And I can think of at least probably 5 just off the top of my head locally that have less roster numbers than we do, trying to play 11-man football still. And if they can see those scholarships that you can compete at a very high level, which we hope to do these next few years, then I think those are going to be the big things that are going to change people's minds about the game.
I've noticed that you're able to stay in communication with a lot of 8-man coaches from different states, and you kind of keep up with it around the kind of the country a little bit, or at least the Midwest part of the country, with the coach from Oklahoma starting to chat and everything, and then of course being involved with Tennessee. In your opinion, out of the states that you know of with 8-man football, the states you've been able to interact with, who do you think has the more advanced programs, and who do you think if it came down to an all-star game or something between or a tournament between teams from each state, which state do you think is the most advanced and is just better overall?
Well, that's tough. I mean, they've all got their different traits that are a little bit better. From being in Tennessee, I got to see film on some of the Alabama teams, and they always had some great speed. Even some of the Tennessee teams when I was there had some pretty good speed, and it looks like that's improved actually over the last few years with some of the film that I've seen from some of the squads. But the Nebraska teams that I've seen on film, and some of those guys that I stay in touch with, they've got quite a bit of size and quite a bit of power. And with Nebraska kind of being the home of the option from those great Tom Osborne teams, it's options very, very prevalent out in Nebraska within 8-man football, and it's very, very tough to defend at that level. That's what we actually run here in Missouri, but we're one of the unique teams that does that. Kansas, with the number of teams that they've got, I think they've actually got more 8-man teams than 11-man teams out there. So, they're going to have a large number of a lot of talent that they could pull from if you could get an all-star team together. Colorado, I think, is pretty new to 8-man, as is Michigan. Michigan's got a lot of big kids up there as well. Wisconsin has just started it these last couple of years with Illinois. So, it's speed kills a lot in 8-man. So I would tend to lean towards the Southern teams with that, just because they usually do have more speed. But, if you get against some of these large juggernaut teams from the Nebraskas or Michigans or even some of them from Kansas, they're going to be able to do it. I would love to see some sort of, national all-star game or national playoff type of thing or something like that where we could compare them. And I think it would be a great thing. And that's not even including, if you go out west to California, I know it's very big in California, and they've got some private school leagues, they've got some public school leagues, and it's pretty wide open out there too. So I think it would be fun to try and play, some interstate type of games. We try to go out of state as much as we can. We're playing 2 teams from Illinois this year. Played a couple of teams from Kansas in the past. I'd love to get a Nebraska team on the schedule, but that's a little bit longer trip for us. And, ideally long term, I'd love to come back to Tennessee and get a home and home series with one of the old Tennessee teams I used to face and try and get something set up with that. But they've each got their strengths, but it would be very, very interesting to see.
We'd love to have you come back and play someone down here and interact with someone down here. I know it's really cool for me because a couple months ago, I actually saw a documentary about 8-man in Hawaii, and they've got a league out there. So that was pretty cool to see. We try to do a pretty halfway decent job here in Tennessee and Kentucky, covering the Kentucky teams. But how well is 8-man covered there in Missouri? Obviously, with you guys being in the public school league, you guys maybe have more exposure, but how well is it covered?
It varies by place. I think with it being mostly in Northwest Missouri and kind of centered around Maryville, which is a pretty big town. That's where Northwest Missouri State is. And then St. Joseph being pretty close by too. With those being pretty large media markets, I think it gets okay exposure. We get pretty good coverage here locally. We're in the Quincy, Illinois area for the most part, and we're kind of on the fringe of it. But both of the television stations and the newspaper over there, they're all very good to us. And our local media here around us, our more rural media, is very good to us as well. I think the teams that are in central Missouri, in between Kansas City and Columbia, I think they get kind of neglected with the media coverage, unfortunately, just because of location bias. But we get a good amount of promotion. We don't have anybody like you guys do with the weekly live broadcast. I would love for somebody to step up and do that and get us a little bit promotion that way. But for the most part, I think with us, most of the teams being around Maryville or St. Joseph, and with us being close to Quincy, I think it gets promoted pretty well. Iowa, I've talked to several of their coaches over the last couple of years, and it sounds like it's pretty neglected up there, unfortunately. And I think even their state association kind of puts them on the back burner, which is too bad. Kansas, and Nebraska both get pretty good promotion from talking to their guys. So depending on where you're at, if it's the main game in town or if it's just kind of a unique thing like we are. I mean, with us being the only 8-man team around, we're kind of a curiosity, so we get quite a bit of coverage that way. But I think it's promoted well. I don't think it's promoted enough, and I think depending on the state and depending on the place, I'd love to see it promoted more so that it could fight some of those stigmas.
What's the best memory you've had in your time coaching?
That's a tough one. I remember my first win when we played that JV game against Franklin Christian, and then ironically that was my first varsity win because we opened with them the following year. Both of those are great memories, and I'll never forget the feeling of when we were pulling away from Franklin Christian. It was obvious we were going to win, of just how much a year in the weight room had helped my kids, and how much being around them for a year had helped them compared to that first year. So that was a great memory. I wouldn't necessarily call it a great memory, but it was a very meaningful memory. With my kids here 2 years ago, we had a car accident here at our school that took a couple of students' lives, and one of them was on our football team, and we paid tribute to both of them at different games because they passed at different times. And the way that my kids handled that, and the way that they held their heads high and respectfully paid tribute and kind of moved through things. I mean, those were very, very meaningful for me to see the strength that they displayed and how close they came with each other, and how they were there for each other. I mean, that was a very special time to be a football coach, because we always talk about how we want to create great young men, and during that whole month or so long span when they were going through all that, it was they definitely showed me how special young men they were.
I got you. Well, Coach, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. And, man, like I said, I hope we can get some kind of home and home with Tennessee going, and get some interstate play, and give guys around here a chance to maybe play someone else who's in their same shoes and has had the same experiences, just in a different place.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, and I look forward to watching more of your broadcasts this year. You guys do a great job.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Coach. Have a good one.
I had a great time talking to Coach Bass about his time here in Tennessee and what's going on in Missouri. I think it's important to keep the context of what's going on in 8-man football outside of Tennessee, because I think at times people can get zoned in that it's just something small that's going on here, and it's something to give us some kind of football to play, but it's being played other places, and I think it's very important to remember that, and to keep that in mind when maybe you think you're the best player or you're the best team. Just, always remember there might be somebody out there that's better than you. But anyways, I had a great time talking to him, great time talking to Isaiah and Jack, and catching up with those guys, talking about the conversation about what kind of field to use for the championship. It's something that not a lot of people think about, but it's a legitimate topic. And for some people, it's a no-brainer. For people like me, I see the pros and cons of both sides. So I think it's something that there has to be a conversation about. But I want to thank all of them for coming on. Thank y'all so much for listening. Listen, tomorrow night we have got 4 great games. If your team's not playing tomorrow night, go find you a game to go to. I'll be at a game. I'll be at Webb at South Haven Christian. So the guys will be down in Antioch broadcasting Sacred Heart at Lighthouse. Go catch a game. If you see one of us, give us a shout. Say hey. As always, see ya!
Say thanks for listening. So just raise